Hi, Susan.
Hello,
Hi,
hello, Jack.
Hey,
Hello, Raleigh.
how you doing?
Hello, hello. Sorry, let me adjust the background now. Cool. Hi, hello,
Hi, how are you?
everyone. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to our AMA with Syscoin. Today we're going to talk about ZK-rollups and their implications, how Syscoin and EVM tries into all of this and a lot about Syscon itself. And let's welcome Jack, Syscon lead developer and CTO of Blockchain Foundry Inc., and Bradley, Syscon Foundation and Syscon marketing team. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi,
hey,
excited
it's
to be
great
here.
to be here. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Did you have a great Christmas break?
Yeah,
yeah,
I
we did.
enjoyed it. Yeah, I
Oh,
got some quality time with the family, and yeah, it's snowed in here, so we had our white Christmas.
oh,
Yeah,
so nice. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to know. So let me introduce Syscon to all of you. So it's a coordinated dual chain EVM platform specially designed to provide ZK-rollups with the Bitcoin merged mined layer 1 for settlement and is time tested and proven secure. Syscon further enhances proof of work with multi-quorum finality that resists MEV attacks and selfish mining, making DeFi safer. Syscon's finality is achieved within 15 seconds of each block, much faster than the finality expected of Ethereum 2.0, which might take 10 to 15 minutes. Further, being merge mined, Syscon inherits much of the security of Bitcoin's own network and a relatively very high hash rate. Merged mining, invented by Satoshi Nakamoto himself in late 2010, is the only truly green form of proof of work. Syscon effectively recycles energy already spent on Bitcoin's miners who extend their work to Syscon and receive SYS block rewards by doing so. So today we're giving away 5,000 US dollar worth of SYS. You could be the winner. Keep watching and we'll let you know how to win. So before we start, I'm thrilled to let the SYS community know that we are giving away 1,000 worth of SYS to you. You can share the 1,000 prize pool by signing up for an account on Binance.com using the promo code IDR4XSBS and pass KYC by 7th of January 2022. So you can see the code here down below. So just sign up and share the 1,000 prize pool. Okay, so let's get started. Jack and Bradley, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, sure. You want to go first, Jack?
yeah, sure. My name is Jagdeep Sidhu, and I've been in the space since 2013. Got about 25 years software experience. Um, I'm the Syscoin core developer, but I'm also the CTO at Blockchain Foundry, which is a for-profit public company listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange. So we are in Toronto, and development happens mostly in Vancouver. And we are the Syscoin community, or the foundation, was established as a way for us to do research and development on Blockchain Foundry, and then the foundation accepts pull requests and votes for changes. Like, for example, if a new change was to happen, we vote on that in the foundation. The foundation is established in Netherlands, and we established it around 2017. So mainly we've been in the space from 2013, and we've seen all of the ups and downs of the space, and we're at a really good point now where we've realized scalability has, just the next step is going to be achieving it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jack. So, Bradley, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bradley Stevenson, and I've been in the Syscoin community since some late 2016. I joined the foundation around late 2018, early 2019, and essentially what the foundation is it's the off-chain governance for the Syscoin protocol. Our first and foremost priority is to stay open, public, decentralized, and permissionless as a base layer. We have Blockchain Foundry members, on our foundation board as well. Our foundation is built and structured in such a way to where no single external party wields majority influence over decisions that are made within the foundation. So we're very careful about that, and we plan accordingly. Me personally, I learned about Bitcoin back in late 2011. I didn't really
that's
fully,
so early. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't fully understand Bitcoin then. A couple of years later, I finally started understanding, the significance of the technology. And that's when I kind of started getting more involved just in owning some Bitcoin and kind of, experimenting with it, around 2014. And, I've just gotten more involved since then because I see the significance that it, it really represents for the world and for the future of the human race. So here I be.
Thank you. Yeah, great introductions. We've known more about you too. So we all know that great projects start with a problem. What problem do you see in the current blockchain space?
Okay. What I see is a problem that is on the edge of being solved. And it's a big problem that's existed since, well, I mean, technically since the beginning of, of the Bitcoin main chain, but even more so since the beginning of Ethereum with computation. It's the scalability issue in particular for decentralized computation, which is what Ethereum has faced over the years. Syscoin, having been around since 2014, which is when we had our version 1 mainnet, we've been able to really have time to assess the technology and to watch it evolve and to adapt our layer 1 appropriately to basically create an evergreen layer 1 that will continue to be relevant, that's future proof. And that's essentially what Syscoin is. So we're going into some very interesting times, and I want to make it perfectly clear to people that there is a macro trend that is emerging now in the market, right? And this goes beyond just Syscoin. Syscoin is very much involved in this, but this is really big picture stuff. And that macro trend is effectively, coming to the surface through ZK-rollups. So think of it like tectonics or, a deep undercurrent or what have you. But these kind of things, when these technologies, when they emerge, they'll completely change the direction of markets. And ZK-rollups in particular are destined to change how people think of blockchains. So what I would say is true scaling is here, nonlinear scaling, and the new challenge that we will face now with ZK-rollups will be having a proven secure layer 1 that ZK-rollups can settle on, right? Because what we've had develop in this market with so many smart chains, alternative smart chains to Ethereum, right, is a lot of layer 1s that have sort of made tweaks and changes here and there in order to kind of, in a monolithic way, try to solve all problems, right? And make all sorts of trade-offs on security. None of that is necessary with ZK-rollups now. Now that L2, legitimate L2, will actually be here for computation, like Ethereum, what is most needed in the area of a layer 1 is secure settlement. That's what we assert at Syscoin. That's what we've seen coming. We knew that legitimate layer 2 would come along for computation. We could have implemented Turing complete smart contracts years ago. We've had several different paths toward that we were trying to work out, see if they were viable. But ultimately, we said we need to focus on providing an ideal layer 1. For when the scaling technology does finally emerge from the research of academics. And that's what we've done. That's what Syscoin is today. And Syscoin's time has come now that ZK rollups are emerging.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the sharing. It sounds really great. And you guys are like you guys keep on improving on your infrastructure and all of that. Yeah, it sounds really nice. So I would like to know what's the vision of the future the blockchain space is evolving toward. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible what we see unfolding. I'm sure Jag has some things he'd like to say on that as well. But what I see and what many people see within Syscoin is a future where billions of simultaneous users are interacting, transacting within metaverses, and eventually smart cities and IoT, which I think will, the evolution towards smart cities, I think will be encouraged and spurred along quite a bit by Metaverse. I think that will inspire a
Yeah,
lot of that. So, and these billions of users will transact fast and very affordably, and they'll be able to have all those transactions secured by Bitcoin style secure settlement. And the high quality user experience that normally we would only associate with centralized services,
yeah,
like Binance, for example, has an incredible user experience. And for so long, the only way that user experience could really be delivered the way that it needed to be was through centralized infrastructure. Well,
hmm,
that's now changing, where Binance and other exchanges will actually be able to have services that are decentralized, while also they're able to retain their existing business models or even evolve their business models and make them better while being
yeah.
decentralized. So it's really incredible stuff. And I'm looking forward to these leading edge user experiences existing in a decentralized way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And Jack, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that was really good leading up to the scalability problem. But I think Professor Dan Bonet of Stanford was saying every 10% that you get, proper scaling without messing up with the decentralization or adding trust, you get a whole slew of new use cases, right? We're
Yeah,
talking about maybe 5, 10 new use cases every 10% of scale. So if Ethereum increases throughput from 7 to maybe 8 or 9, you get a whole bunch of new use cases out of that. Now, what we're talking about is scaling maybe 5 or 10x or 50x in the coming year. And that is going to be amazing because there's going to be a whole bunch of different use cases that we never even imagined. And metaverse, NFTs, DAOs, these are just single use cases that came because it was possible to do things without barrier of entry. But now we're talking about IoT and smart cities and AI and these sorts of things that we never thought could actually intersect with blockchain, because the scalability issue is now coming to a head and we're able to solve that. It's going to be much more interesting in how the enterprises and commercial market reacts and develops in the space.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to add. Like, I'm sorry, I just cannot help myself. So,
yeah, it's
uh,
fine. Please,
when
please
it
go.
when it comes to metaverse, right? So, metaverse is a really big deal in my view, and the reason why is
Yeah,
because, like, if you talk with professors of economics, oftentimes they'll say that economics are like an abstraction of physics, right? Or
yeah,
and some say that it's something more solid than an abstraction, but in any case, metaverse puts people in a completely like another dimension as far as physics are concerned. And so it essentially takes people's blinders off and as far as how they perceive value, right? So in this physical world, we tend to all have blinders on because of our day-to-day activities. With metaverse, going into this entirely different sort of experience that's almost like a new world, people are going to start looking and finding new ways to think about value. They're going to experience new things and bring those experiences out of the metaverse into the real world. And that's what I was talking about earlier with how that I think that will lead into the evolution of smart cities. And really just that compounds with the scalability that Jag was talking about. So Yeah, I mean, the potential use cases that we're going to see in the near future are going to be mind blowing. There will be all sorts of unicorns, and we're trying to anticipate them as much as we can.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Metaverse is a big deal these days. After Facebook's changed its name, everyone's talking about Metaverse, even they haven't heard about crypto, and also NFTs, because NFTs are very closely connected to Metaverse and all of these, ownership, decentralization, stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious. Do you think Syscoin's gonna beat his own Metaverse or something like that? Do you have something like this in mind, or yeah?
Yeah, so we are focused on Metaverse because our technology specifically is incredibly useful for that, and with layer 2 emerging for computation, ZK-rollups, and our L1, Metaverse is quite well suited for Syscoin. We're in Blocktopia. We have a partnership with them, so we're really looking forward to their Metaverse launching and going in there and showing people more about Syscoin. So Metaverse is very exciting for us, and we're very much a part of that.
Wow, sounds cool. Yeah. Everyone's talking about Metaverse these days, and I'm glad to know that you have some like plans to develop the Metaverse.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think though the metaverse, you need the gaming companies and the gaming component is going to become critical, because once you're in there, it's almost like a game. So you have to think of it as a game developer, and being working in the game development space, I truly appreciate the immersiveness that's required to kind of make that sort of thing go. Not only do you have to make it very graphical and look almost like real life, but you have to gamify it in unique
Yeah.
ways, and it has to be responsive. You can't wait for 20 seconds for a certain action because you've bought a sword and now you're trying to use it. It needs to be almost instantaneous.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack, for the sharing. Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so Brad, when you answer a question about the vision of the future blockchain space, you mentioned decentralization. So could you expand on how Syscoin is decentralized?
Yeah, sure. So decentralization can be somewhat of a complex topic, right? Some people like to really oversimplify it, and I'm not going to try to get too complicated here, but I'll just kind of go over some points, right? So decentralization is really more of a scale than a binary yes/no answer. That being said, Syscoin in all respects is very far on the decentralized side of that spectrum. So and on one point, you have the issue of coin distribution. Syscoin has been around for a long time. Over that period of time, the distribution of Sys, our native coin, is very broad. We do have some whales, of course, but we don't have a ton of them overall. I think the coin is very well distributed. In fact, the top 10 wallets on the Syscoin blockchain are owned by exchanges. So yeah. So the other aspect, the security model, we stick with Nakamoto consensus. We keep that gold standard intact on our Bitcoin-based chain. As you mentioned earlier, when you're introducing Syscoin is a dual chain. It's a coordinated dual chain ecosystem. So we've got a Bitcoin-based UTXO chain, and we've got an Ethereum-based EVM, both of which retain their security models, both of which retain their models. On the Ethereum side, the model for computation is retained. On the Bitcoin side, the model for security is retained, and that security through protocol adaptation secures the EVM chain. So if you think of it like two spheres within a bigger sphere that is Syscoin itself, that's effectively, and maybe that helps our logo make sense. It's kind of a yin yang, Yeah. So as far going further on decentralization, it also depends on who is operating the full nodes. You don't want one entity operating the full nodes, by any means. We have a very broad distribution of Sys. We have incentivized full nodes that currently number around 2,500 on our network, and an untold number of just regular full nodes that aren't incentivized. By the way, if someone wants to operate an incentivized full node, which is also called a master node, we have some special programs where if you hold a master node for 1 year, you get a 35% bonus on your rewards, your
Wow.
block rewards. Yeah. And if you hold it for 2.5 years, you get a 100% bonus. So there's the 35% after 1 year, 100% after 2.5 years. And we just, for the first time this December, right after the release of NEVM, we had some of our master nodes hit that 2.5-year seniority level. And those guys are diamond hands. Like once you achieve that level of seniority reward, you're not giving that up. So we're an open source blockchain. Anyone can submit pull requests and participate in development. We welcome that. And of course, Syscoin Foundation determines what code to commit, right? So we do secure our code repository. And then also we have decentralized governance. We have off-chain governance with the foundation that works very, very closely with our decentralized governance in the form of masternodes. Very similar to Dash in that regard. So just to sum it up, I mean, we are quite decentralized, and we also aim to extend decentralization into some new areas like decentralized Web3 services. So in contrast to Ethereum's more centralized Infura service, right, we can use our infrastructure of incentivized full nodes to serve as Web3 providers at some point in the future. We've got plans for that. We're working that out. And we can do that specifically because of some special attributes that Syscoin's network has that not every other blockchain does.
Yeah, I'd like to add on the seniority component. That was a very interesting psychological feature because, it's not like you're getting 400% rewards or anything, but just the 35% bonus and then 100% bonus, it's a psychological barrier for not wanting to move those coins. And so it actually was a really interesting feature that doesn't cost the network a whole lot, and it creates the diamond hands that Bradley was saying. Like people are, even if the difference is maybe, if you're running one masternode, the difference is maybe a few $1,000s, they simply won't sell because of the loss of seniority potentially. So very, very cost efficient feature to create, a better hodling, if you will.
Thank you. That sounds really good. The seniority rewards bonus for the masternode after 2.5 years is 100%, and is really like a big bonus, and incentivize people to hold the coins and help with the development of Syscoin. Yeah, it sounds really nice. And so let me remind our audience that there'll be a quiz at the end of the AMA, so just pay attention to what Bradley and Jack mentioned during the AMA, and you'll be able to share a $2,000 worth of SYS at the end of the AMA. So just pay attention and you'll be rewarded. So, okay, so let's go to the next question. You mentioned modular and monolithic chains. Could you please expand on the difference and their importance?
Do you want to take this one, Jack, or would you like me to jump in?
No, you're doing pretty good.
Okay.
I'll do the next one.
Okay. Yeah. So, the vast majority of the alternative smart chains that exist today are monolithic designs. Basically, what this means is they try to solve all problems on layer one, including scalability, basically by re-engineering layer one. Oftentimes to do things maybe layer one really wasn't, fit to do, or that wouldn't be its best purpose. As a consequence, they force users to accept all of the security and resilience trade-offs, right? Because they're doing all of that on layer one, and it's not so much interactive, right? So if you choose to use that chain, like right up front, like you're taking a trade-off on on security to get that speed. With our modular design, it's quite a bit different. So scale and flexibility are achieved on layer 2 with ZK-rollups, while layer 1 is able to remain intact for its best purpose. Like, for us, we provide the most proven security model. And, again, we assert that the best purpose of layer 1 is exactly that. Decentralized secure settlement is incredibly important. And when users are transacting within rollups and getting that amazing user experience they would normally only get from a centralized system inside of a ZK rollup, and the settlement on the layer 1 isn't something that they even necessarily perceive in the vast majority of cases. It's just something that happens in the background. Then obviously the most important thing when choosing a layer 1 in a ZK rollup world is going to be security, in our opinion. I think Ethereum also has a valid case for what it's doing in regard to really trying to serve as a layer 1 for data availability, right? Because that's going to be very important as well. Where Syscoin is a little bit different is we put data availability really a lot more in the hands of the projects that use ZK rollups. Whether they want to do it like a straight ZK rollup, or they want to do Validium or Volition, like a Volition type approach, which I won't get too I don't want to get too technical and get into that too much, but we give the user some flexibility on what they choose. And really, when it comes to layer 1, we're just focused on security first and foremost. Because that's the foundation that gives blockchain value to begin with, right? Is layer 1 security that's decentralized.
Yeah, I'd like to add that for the first time in the blockchain space since the beginning, we with the modular design, we'll be able to achieve economies of scale. If you look at any construct of scaling in society today, the court systems, the technology, all the companies and businesses, they all had to scale as economies of scale, right? So they had to actually, as more users come, it gets cheaper and cheaper to use, and that concept just wasn't possible with Bitcoin, and it wasn't possible before the magic moon math of ZKP. Now that you have ZKP, you can start to aggregate things together, make them smaller and smaller, and use that as your blockchain state, and you get economies of scale for the first time. So this means in the long run, the fees won't be an issue, and the transaction times won't be an issue. The size of the blockchain getting bigger is not an issue. It stays small. It's just a single proof that could represent your entire chain.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, both. Okay, so do you have a roadmap to complete your visions? Because in the comment section, I think Jack, you can read the comments. People asking where they can buy sits. Yeah, you can buy them on Binance. And do you have any roadmaps? So I think it would be great if you shared with us your roadmap to complete your visions.
Yeah. So yeah, you can buy in Binance, and there'll be more exchanges in the future. But the roadmap in the short term is to launch our ZK rollup. So we're looking at ZK Sync to launch that in the next 1 to 3 years. Subsequently, the industry is working towards ZK-EVM. What ZK-EVM is an iteration on top of the rollup, the zero knowledge proof systems. What that is when you're executing a smart contract, you have opcodes, and each opcode is executed in serial to create a trace. It's essentially like just a program that runs. In the EVM, there are certain opcodes, like getting the block hash or calculating the block or running a series of program executions in the smart contract. And what we want to do is each opcode, we want to do a zero knowledge proof on that as well. So if you have each opcode represented using a zero knowledge proof, together you have the entire EVM being represented in a zero knowledge proof. That is a much stronger statement and a much stronger strategy than what is happening with some of the rollups today, where you have to take code and convert it into another language and then run in that language because it's more zero knowledge proof friendly. So taking the actual EVM and making that, making a zero knowledge proof of that actual EVM is something that will open up a lot of doors. For example, the layer 1 chain itself can become, instead of EVM, it will become a ZK-EVM, which is kind of maybe a couple years down the road. Especially we're working with someone like Ethereum on that. Once Ethereum Foundation decides that the ZK-EVM is stable and ready, we definitely can deploy that with our own research. The other thing it does is it opens up really trustless, simple, light client security. So right now, when you have your MetaMask wallet or your mobile wallet and you want to connect to Ethereum, there's a lot of trust in that connection, because the service you're connecting to can simply lie to you and tell you that the blockchain is in a different state than it is, to maybe trick you into sending some money that you shouldn't be sending, or tell you the wrong balances, for example. To have light client security, Vitalik, that's one of the main reasons they moved off of proof of stake and moving to proof of stake and going to sharding, is to create better light client interoperability with the MetaMasks and the mobile wallets. With ZK-EVM, you can actually create a trustless light client, because now the EVM, the proof of the zero knowledge proof of the actual system, could be represented using a small, maybe 16, 20 bytes. And you only have to download that. And you don't have to download the entire chain. And you can know that you're actually connected to the right blockchain, right? So better light client security, which precipitated Vitalik and the Foundation to move towards proof of stake and sharding, is negated with some of this stuff using ZK-EVM. And the last point that ZK-EVM is going to help with is interoperability. So EVMs, if you can create a proof that the EVM is valid, you can now use a smart contract to represent a proof and another smart contract to represent another proof of another blockchain, and you can interoperate trustlessly. So no multi-party computation, which is some of these, like AnySwap is using multi-party computation. It works fine, but there's some security assumptions there. There's custody-based bridging, but with ZK-EVM, we can create purely decentralized, trustless interoperability between EVM chains.
Yeah, all based on math, not assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds really great.
The last thing, sorry, before I end it off, there is there's some new tidbits of information here, right? Because I've never mentioned ZK-EVM before. This is really new research, right? This research is happening by next year, but by early next year, we think the ZK-EVM is going to be possible, right? On Ethereum and Syscoin modular chains. This is where it's going to be mostly beneficial. The other component we see a really, really big trend, more of a business trend than anything else, is hardware optimized ZK snarks or ZK starks. So what I mean by that is, how Bitmain, they create ASICs for Bitcoin mining or ETH mining. You'll have a whole slew of companies doing ASICs for zero knowledge proofs. So when these systems are running to run the rollups, they're relying on ZK proofs. You have hardware optimized solutions for that. You'll be able to do more transactions at a cheaper rate and earn more as a solution provider to someone that's inside of a rollup. So ASICs in there are going to be as big or bigger than the Bitcoin mining ASIC industry itself. It's going to be critical to anything we do with zero knowledge proofs. The ASICs are going to be there in your phones, in your tablets, on the cloud service providers. They're going to be everywhere because of the amount of flexibility they offer, and the fact that you can have sharing of information without giving up that information in zero knowledge.
Yeah, and sometimes that question comes up, like, is Syscoin going to become ASIC resistant? Like, why aren't you guys ASIC resistant? We're like, we don't want to be ASIC resistant. That's the future. ASICs are going to become more efficient.
Yeah. So ASICs are a natural phenomenon that ends up creating more efficiencies, and the efficiencies in a roll-up is actually very much desired.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. it really like it's really nice to know that Syscoin's developing and found its own path, and also doing constantly different kinds of innovations to improve the coin, of course, and also the ecosystem. Excuse me. The ecosystem of Syscoin. So I would like to know, how does Syscoin plan to drive this ecosystem growth?
Well, we have TVL incentives. So we recently announced 20 million Sys as an incentive program for total value locked for projects. So the bigger the project, the more incentive for them. They hold it for a year and they get paid out in bounty. There's also a grant system for big projects to migrate over to cover costs, engineering costs, although it's pretty simple. Most of the value will be on the layer twos. Layer one is meant to be the secure, stable court system where we focus. The incentives is going to be mostly on the layer twos. As we get the roll ups going, we will push launch pads and different sorts of incentive programs to get projects on that. And essentially, ETH and Sys will be kind of interoperable and seamless. Users will be using those. Both chains are modular chains, so they'll both be roll-up centric roadmaps. The only difference with Sys is that you'll be settling with Bitcoin security, and in ETH, it's more, it'll be using proof of stake. So, both chains are in lockstep how they're developing out. ETH is focused more on, sharding and proof of stake to offer a little bit more data on the blockchain, while Sys is more geared towards the hardened, secure settlement of funds and value, and then scaling through ZK-rollups. So when ETH Foundation comes up with a breakthrough, we can leverage that. If we come up with a breakthrough, Ethereum can leverage that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds great. Okay, so Brad, if you don't have anything to add, we'll move to part 2 of today's live.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add one more thing. Since we're talking about growing the ecosystem, we are open to consider partnering with exchanges because of the direction that technology is going now with ZK-rollups, and that centralized services will be able to retain their business models or even improve them and decentralize themselves. It's very important for them to have a secure chain and a good solid project. With a strong development mindset, with a methodical approach to design that's evolved over the years. So if, for example, Binance wanted to have an official chain that it would use for its decentralized services, we'd be happy to speak with them. Of course, it would need to be a good exchange, such as Binance, that has a good reputation, a large exchange, right? So that's we would be willing to consider that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if you're operating an exchange, feel free to reach out to Syscoin. I think they'll be happy to connect. Okay, so thank you very much, Jack and Bradley. Now let's move to part 2 of today's live. We've collected 5 questions from the community before the live, and Jack and Bradley are here to answer them. Each of the winners will be rewarded with $200 worth of Sys. If your questions weren't selected, no worries. You can still ask them later during our live Q&A section. Jack and Bradley will select 5 of their favorite questions, and every chosen winner will be rewarded with $200 in Sys. So prepare your questions now. So before we start the session, let me remind you that you can share 1,000 in SYS by signing up for an account on Binance.com with code IDR4XSBS and pass KYC by 7th of January 2022. So you'll be able to share 1,000 in SYS. So sign up now. Okay, so let's start the social media Q&A section. The first question is asked by Blog Attorney. What will be the incentive to use a Syscoin ZK-rollups implementation instead of an Ethereum 2.0 one?
Well, I think the main reason to use the Syscoin rollups would be the security settlement and MEV, long-term MEV protection. MEV is minor extractable value. What happens in Ethereum today is there is front running and auctions taking place to reorg the Ethereum blockchain if there's enough value to be able to do that in DeFi. So if there's a large arbitrage and the auction would pay off if you reorg 5 blocks, that would happen. And in our system, we prevented that by doing something called chain locks. So that's something, even Binance is looking at that to reduce our confirmation times to deposit and withdraw, because if you don't have rollbacks, then you essentially are creating finality. And that's what we meant by the 15-second finality after each block. Is there's a chain lock that gets established, and from that point on, the blockchain cannot roll back. It becomes hard and final at that point. So having the finality there in a proof of work setting, and even with Ethereum, there's finality as well. But the problem with that is in a proof of stake, when you add finality, and if that finality ever has an issue, for example, if there is a valid fork at that point, and there in the histories you can't tell which one's right, and you get the wrong one, and the system breaks at that point, there is no chance Ethereum 2 can survive on its own. They need to fork that out. They need to create a fork and then get every node to upgrade. In our system, when we have finality, and it's backed by proof of work, so what happens is if the finality doesn't work out because the incentivized full nodes, the master nodes, they can't agree that the blockchain is in the same state, then it just falls back to the traditional Bitcoin proof of work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't break, it self-corrects itself. So that's a big difference. But the main issue is on the settlement of the security. So that you're secured by Bitcoin, but doing everything that you can do on Ethereum.
Yeah, if a large family trust wants to do a settlement, they may choose Syscoin over Ethereum's more experimental proof of stake, simply because of us keeping the Nakamoto consensus intact, and some other things as well. They'll know that their transaction will exist on the chain 100 years from now, in other words.
Yeah, sounds like ZK-rollups a much better solution than Ethereum 2. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. So the next question is asked by Zuna Trading. So it's a very long question. So it says, does Blockchain Foundry, being a public listed company, create conflicting interest for the Syscoin platform? Syscoin wanting to be for the people, and Blockchain Foundry being obligated to shareholder value, or do you feel both can be intertwined with ease?
Yeah, and I can speak to that first, and then Jag can jump in too. So, I wouldn't say that they can be intertwined with ease. It's not hard though, right? It just involves a little bit of planning and management. On Syscoin Foundation, for example, we always ensure that the board membership doesn't consist of any external entity having a majority voice in what goes on in the foundation. So we have a couple of people that come from Blockchain Foundry on the foundation, and then the rest of the members, which let's see, there are 4 other members right now are not involved with Blockchain Foundry. So Blockchain Foundry is not going to overrule anything, and that they're not going to impose their will, in other words, on Syscoin. It's very important for our protocol to be open source. As I said before, we do value Blockchain Foundry very much. They're very important to Syscoin. If I were to characterize the relationship between Syscoin and Blockchain Foundry, I would say kind of like Ethereum has consensus and Bitcoin has Blockstream. Syscoin has Blockchain Foundry, right? And they bring a ton of enterprise insight, you know, being publicly traded, going through all the regulatory the regulatory hurdles that they've had to navigate, being a blockchain oriented company. All of that's very valuable. Their interaction with enterprises and understanding what enterprises are looking for in blockchain, you know, because we haven't seen massive enterprise adoption. We've seen you know, large institutions investing in blockchain in different ways, but we haven't seen a lot of enterprises offering blockchain driven services to their customers, right? And Blockchain Foundry understands that problem very clearly, and thus by osmosis, essentially, and by having some Blockchain Foundry members on the foundation, Syscoin also understands those problems, and we address those design issues, which is why we're where we're at today.
Yeah, I would, you know, that's pretty good. And I would add that Blockchain Foundry is a for-profit public company that was established around the same time as a foundation. And actually, we established a foundation as a result of the open source nature of Syscoin. And to date, you know, BCF has been working on the protocol to develop it out, and then the features are voted on and set into the protocol. But if you think about BCF, it's more about we've spent the 5 or 6 years to build infrastructure, and so we can build products on top. The products would be revenue generating things on top, like NFT marketplaces, AMMs. You know, that's why we did EVM. But in the future, you might have, since we're so tied into the enterprises with the banks and, you know, the big businesses and sports leagues and these kind of, they're all very scared at the thought of being regulated in the US, especially. How do these, since we're focused mostly on North America, we hear this all the time, that we cannot go into public DeFi, or we can't create a public token, but we just want to leverage blockchain, you know, externally, maybe digital identity or something like that. It's really not taking advantage of the value of anything that is happening in the space. In order for us to solve that problem, we've had to come up with solutions. For example, we may do a compliant ZK rollup, and that would allow us to onboard enterprises because the entire rollup is compliant. You know, KYC and AML checks, accredited investor checks, and if a user really wants to use it, he can sign in, become accredited, and participate in security token offerings. You know, do regulated DeFi, and enterprises will be easy to jump into that because they'll know that there is guidance behind that, there's compliance behind that. So it's not a long-term solution, but we think in the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be this big thing where enterprises want to join smart contracts and they want to join blockchain, but they need that compliant, you know, sandbox to be able to play in.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for them to want to join into decentralization as well. I mean, it's they don't have to deal with custodianship so much. You know, it's lower infrastructure costs and less risk on proven decentralized systems. So there's a lot of reasons for them to want to use it. But like Jag was saying, they've come up on that issue of regulation being such a hurdle, which we have solutions for that, and Blockchain Foundry in particular does. And it's in our opinion, you know, the holy grail type solution for projects that need, like enterprises that absolutely have to abide by regulations and need to be decentralized too, right? So our open and permissionless blockchain can support those kinds of use cases with some assistance from off-chain systems in those special cases, right? So it's actually conceivable in the future, at some point, we might see Tesla stock traded against Syscoin on a DEX.
Yeah,
I know Binance was trying to do that, and we can do that without custody. That's the main thing. There's no custody involved. It's your MetaMask could be holding your Tesla, and you can trade that on a DEX, and it would be a security, but it's fully compliant. And that's an example of maybe a product that BCF would be working on to build out, and there's revenues associated, and, you know, enterprises, connections, brokers, KYC providers would all plug in. So that's an example.
The way that we solve that is actually, it's pretty incredible because it's so elegant and it's so simple that once you actually sit down with someone and you explain to them how it works, how we're actually able to do this, they say to themselves, like, why didn't anybody do that before? It's almost so simple and elegant, it's hard to believe that nobody thought of it, but we have it.
Yeah, so here you are. Yeah, so it's just incredible, and I totally agree that regulations are very important, and in the long run, you have to, you know, follow those rules. And I'm so happy that Syscoin find its way to, you know, solve all these problems. Okay, so let's move to the next question. It's answered by Future Club. The question is, what is the main difference between ZK-rollups and Polygon sidechains?
Well, Polygon's is a kind of like a plasma chain, and it was an iteration of layer twos before ZK-rollups came, and optimistic rollups came, and then ZK-rollups came. So Polygon is going to become a rollup themselves on Ethereum, and they also have their, they recently purchased the MIR protocol, MIR, which is a layer one, but I think they'll transition that to a layer two as well. And they also purchased Hermes, which is a layer two ZK rollup design, much like ZK Sync and Starknet. So their goal is to go all in on ZK rollups as well. And we've been speaking to them over the years, and I really stress to them as well that we as an industry, we better be looking at ZK rollups as the only way to scale, because prior to that, they were focused more on bridge as a service and optimistic rollups and plasma chains, and speaking to them over the course of maybe a year or so, it became evident that not only would they have to become ZK rollup centric, but they would also likely become a rollup themselves. And so they, are really aggressive, and what they're doing is really spreading advancements in the space around rollups. Like some of the companies I know they've invested in are on the hardware acceleration side, on the rollup design, maybe involved on the ZK-EVM stuff. I think Hermes is working on ZK-EVM. So we share a lot of the fundamental academic research that's happening, and it'll benefit both Polygon and Syscoin. But what Polygon is a tech stack on top of Ethereum, which could also build on top of Syscoin. So it's more synergistic. We can take the Polygon stack and Hermes or MIR, whatever rollup design they come up with, and we can launch it on Syscoin as well.
Cool. Thank you, Jack. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. It's asked by FI Renegade. Okay, so the question is I think it's a very good question, actually. It's quite long, but it's really good. So the question is, I recently read a tech paper which explained that the number of TPS that can be verified is capped by the processing power of the server. So I'm wondering how Syscoin will verify 4M TPS with ZK-rollups, and whether this is a theoretical rather than practical max.
Yeah, that's a good question, because you won't have, when we mention that, and I cringe at saying 4 million TPS all the time, but these are extrapolated, because when StarkX guys did the Reddit challenge with ZK Starks, they actually had numbers they put on the Ethereum main chain, and we simply extrapolated that. This is not going to be 4 million TPS on one rollup, right? It's going to be spread across many rollups. Many businesses will run their own, and together they are going to accumulate up to 4 million TPS at any given time, using the Syscoin main chain as a security layer. So there may be 50,000 transactions happening on one, 50,000 on another. Accumulated, it could be up to 4 million. That's with the estimated data that we, the size of the blocks that we estimated were plausible in the Syscoin layer one. So also, when I mentioned on the ASICs, when ASICs come, hardware acceleration comes, those numbers will go up, right? Because now it'll become cheaper and faster, more efficient. to do the ZK proofs, and therefore, I wrote about this in my Medium article around the concept of decentralized cost model. For the first time, you'll have real world computing hitting a hard limit on how much a computer can do to scale most efficiently. There's going to be no ancillary costs. It's going to be very strictly how much CPU are you using to create a ZK proof. And if you have a better CPU, you can crunch more numbers and therefore earn more revenue. That is a decentralized cost model, because it means the more power you have, the more transactions you can process. Very similar to the Bitcoin, more power you have, more chance you are to get a block. In this case, the more power you have, the more revenue you can earn, because you'll be able to include more transactions in your proof. And with ASICs, that takes it on another level. So hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, so you mentioned the similarity between Bitcoin and Sys. So the next question is also about Bitcoin, and I love this question because, well, okay, so it's asked by Daniel Moreno GM2. So the question is, I would like you to explain in a simple way how Bitcoin can also be mined in Syscoin mining. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to answer that. So a little backstory on what's called merged mining, which is what we're talking about here. As mentioned earlier, Satoshi Nakamoto is the inventor of merged mining. He put forth that idea in December, I think it was early December of 2010, and you can still find those Bitcoin Talk posts. They're public, where he was speaking with the developers of BitDNS, which became known as Namecoin later on, and that was like the first merge mined blockchain, right? So essentially, what merge mining is you have Bitcoin miners, of course, and they're performing work, and essentially what they can do is take the work that they already performed, provide a proof of the work that they have done to Syscoin. Essentially, you can think of it kind of like a voucher, and it says, here is the work that I've performed. And if they win the Syscoin block among the others, then they receive a block reward, right? So we basically are basically kind of interlinked with Bitcoin as far as our security, and there's some incredible benefits of that. So for one thing, it's green. Okay, so we're not expending any additional energy for mining or anything like that. I mean, minus the little bit of extra electricity it takes to run a virtual host or something, right? To have a Syscoin node, there's no extra energy expenditure. We're taking the work already performed on Bitcoin that's provided to us by those miners, and we're using that to secure our chain. And in turn, they are rewarded with Syscoin. Now, something very interesting I want to point out about this, which is pretty amazing. There's an interesting dynamic here. Syscoin is now EIP 1559 based, which is essentially the same kind of tokenomics as Ethereum, right? So dynamic inflation and deflation, fee burning. And the great thing about that is not having a max supply, but having a tightly managed supply that's balanced like Ethereum's. And not, by not having that max supply, essentially in the distant future, when Bitcoin reaches its max supply and Bitcoin miners are no longer receiving block rewards, the fact that Syscoin exists as a merge mine chain, that's EIP 1559, guarantees that Bitcoin miners will have an incentive to continue mining Bitcoin, because they will be receiving Syscoin as rewards, in addition, of course, to to Bitcoin's network fees. But they really need something more than that. And I think merge mining has been overlooked for a long time. Satoshi didn't come up with that idea, just willy-nilly. Basically, it's supposed to serve a very important purpose as the blockchain space matures and begins to kind of see over the horizon what's coming, and understand the foresight of Satoshi Nakamoto, which we've seen other examples of. For example, his foresight of UTXO and change addresses, right? It was almost like prophetic in regard to quantum computing, because it gives Bitcoin quantum resistance to have a change address scheme, right? The same thing with merge mining. There's going to be a future where merge mining is actually critical to the continuation of the Bitcoin network beyond its max supply.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're positioned, to be that coin, and we love to have the support of the Bitcoin miners that are mining Syscoin and supporting our chain, and they have every reason to, to do whatever they can to help ensure the success of Syscoin as well.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Yeah, it really sounds good and a very innovative program. Merge mining, and I hope everyone knows more about merge mining now and what it does and how it works. Okay, so we've answered all 5 questions now. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's now move to part 3 of today's live, which is Q&A section. So now you could ask questions about Syscoin in the comment section. 5 chosen winners will take home $200 US in Sys each. So okay, you can only ask questions or leave comments if you're watching live using the Binance app. So just open your Binance app and go to homepage, click more, and you will be able to see an icon called Binance Live, and then you'll be able to ask questions there. So, okay, let's begin. Please do ask questions here, and I think Jack, you can see the answers, the questions, right?
Yep.
Okay, I can see people asking questions. We can give them some time. Okay, I can see a lot of questions coming.
Give us some hard balls. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, while we're waiting for the questions, let me just remind all of you that you could share $1,000 US worth of Sys by signing up for an account on Binance.com with code IDR4XSBS. The code is down below here, and you need to pass KYC by 7th of January 2022 in order to share the $1,000 US in Sys. So if you're a new Binance user, just sign up now before 7th of January. So you'll be able to share the $1,000 prize pool. Okay, so do we have some questions now? Okay. I can see people asking what is SYS long form. So it stands for Syscoin, SYS coin, COIN. You can buy it on Binance.com. Yeah, check it out.
Syscoin, the system of systems.
Yeah, system. Oh, it stands for, yeah, okay. Didn't know that before. Thank you. Okay. So, Jack, if you see some good questions, you could start to ask them now. Or we can wait for more questions to come.
Okay, I can answer as I go, right?
Yeah. So please read the questions as exactly as it is.
Someone asked what the benefit of Sys over Solana. Some of these other ones. I think Bradley was explaining that alt smart chains are all using monolithic designs, and we are using modular design, meaning we get economies of scale. The more users, the more scalable it becomes. The more throughput, the more scalable it becomes. Whereas the monolithic design, the more throughput, the higher fees, the slower it gets, more chance of it breaking. Now, what happens if Solana, Avalanche, and some of these other chains decide that they're going to try to become modular, right? They want to do ZK-rollups as well. Well, why would and as much as they may want to do that, what difference would there be from that chain to what Ethereum 2 is going to become with proof of stake? So at that point, there's Ethereum 2 that's proof of stake with ZK rollups, and then there's something like Solana that's proof of stake with ZK-rollups, and there's less differentiation on the Solana chain compared to Ethereum at that point.
Yeah, so they would just
yes.
choose the more robust network, right? They would probably go for Ethereum at that point.
Yeah, I mean, there may be some, there's a lot of maximalists in either chain, and so maybe they'll have some of the value that's retained. But over the long run, when you have apples to apples, people will just choose, the bigger apple or the more, the one that's perfectly red and ripe, and most people are eating that one. They'll choose that one.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Let's see. Is this inflationary? Yeah, EIP 1559. The goal is to scale up with population, and so the population growth is around 1%. We modeled our numbers after population growth of about 1%. So it falls down accordingly from 1% to lower and lower. But the goal is to inflate with the population, and so as more people are starting to use it, more people are born into using blockchain. They won't be priced out of the market, but there are periods of deflation under EIP 1559 where the fees start to become more than the amount of block rewards. Those are usually pretty short term. I think Ethereum is getting close to almost being purely deflationary, but in the long term, I think it will be inflationary as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other coins planning. If there's another network that becomes stronger than Bitcoin, we can merge mine with them. But Bitcoin is the gold standard for security, so we are merge mining with that. If Syscoin becomes more popular, maybe Bitcoin decides to merge mine with Syscoin. Yeah, it's really interoperable.
So, Jack, what question was that?
Oh, I was saying, someone was asking, are you planning to merge? Decimal asked, are you planning merge mining with other proof of work coins?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
There are multiple coins being merge mined, though, in the pools, like Namecoin, Devcoin, Syscoin. Dogecoin is merge mined with Litecoin. So the pools definitely have a bunch of coins they mine at the same time. But I would say like Syscoin is probably the most impactful.
Yeah, and also we, in addition to Bitcoin miners merge mining for Syscoin, there are also some Bitcoin Cash miners doing that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
In 2022, someone asked, will Validium work with ZK-rollups? The goal is Validium is kind of like the off-chain data availability or accounts. Our goal is to actually give the users the option if they want to store their account on-chain or off-chain. That's Volition. ZK Sync has a system called ZK Porter, and that lets you decide as a user, do you want your system, do you want your account to be stored on-chain, meaning it's exactly like using layer 1 security-wise, or do you want to keep it off-chain, which gives you another maybe 10 times reduction of fees. So using on-chain data is going to cost you a little bit more, but you get the higher security. Off-chain, you have to store the data yourself or use a service to store the data, but you'll be able to get even cheaper transactions, like minuscule amount of fees.
Yeah.
Maybe even free. I know the Mute project that we're partnered up with, they plan to make on the rollups, they plan to make no fees for transactions that happen inside of their AMM. They actually are going to subsidize all the fees because they're so cheap. So it'll be free and fast, pretty much.
Yeah, I see. So ZK-rollups will be coming to Syscoin in Q1 next year, while Validium will be arriving in about Q3, right?
Yeah, I mean, if ZK Sync solves its problems and introduces us ZK Porter all at the same time, we can probably offer both within one release. But I know that they were having some issues on their testnet, so we are just working through the bugs, and maybe we can get them to use our testnet as well to help iron out those bugs. But the volition model encapsulates Validium. And so we may be able to launch both of them at the same time. And in Q3 instead, we start to focus on things like ZK-EVM, hardware optimization on the provers, create new interesting roll-up designs, new ones that just don't exist, privacy preserving ZK-rollups, because right now they're not going to be completely private, but in the future we can design privacy in mind and get completely private transactions, fast, scalable, cheap. And the next step also is to try to create compliant rollups as well as a product on Blockchain Foundry, so that security tokens, and that's a $160 trillion market by 2030, just security tokens. So that's something we can tackle on once we have, once we have a first iteration of a rollup, we can start to innovate and create new versions of those rollups.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it. Okay, so I think we have one question left, right?
Yeah.
So
okay,
many questions now. Yeah.
Like a lot of Coinbase ones.
100.
We are working with Coinbase. I mean, it just takes some time for them to review review the Syscoin blockchain. I think with the EVM, it might become easier. So we're going through the process with them. So, I would expect that sooner or later they will be adding us. Let me just pick one good question here. What is your plan to get more stable coins in the Syscoin ecosystem? So I think everything in DeFi works with stable coins. We have partnered with AnySwap, and they're going to be our bridge service. And I think 5 or 6 stable coins will be created or allow us to interoperate with Ethereum very soon. So from Ethereum to our Syscoin Layer 1, you should be able to bring in DAI, BUSD, USDT, USDC, BUSD, and we have an existing Binance partnership with BUSD, and so we'll push BUSD at every opportunity we can, especially on layer 2s. So I think once we're on layer 2, I think we can do a lot of cool things with BUSD. So we already have a partnership with Binance, so we will continue to look to integrate more things with BUSD.
To expand the ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack, for answering the questions. And congrats to the 5 winners. You'll be able to get 200 worth of SYS within 14 working days after the end of the AMA. So thank you, gentlemen, again. And I think it's time to move to part 4 of today's live. So it's quiz time. I will ask you 4 questions, and the first 5 people who provide the correct answer in the comment section will take home 100 in SYS each. So are you ready? So remember, you have to watch the AMA from your phone to be able to leave any comment. So are you ready? Okay, the first question is, what is the seniority reward bonus for masternode after 2.5 years? So let's answer the question down below. Wow. Okay. So
Yeah, I think
correct.
I think the person that put the emoji for 100.
The emoji, yeah, is so quick, because if you
so
type
quick.
100 and the emoji comes up, right?
Oh yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
the correct answer is 100%. And I think Brad mentioned it's a really good incentive, because if you got diamond hands, you won't be able to you don't want to just sell this anymore. So yeah, and this is very, very good and a huge bonus for all of you. Okay, so congrats to the 5 winners, and let's move on to the next question. So the question 2 is, how is Syscoin mined? Okay, answer the question now. It has something to do with Bitcoin, right? Come on, come on.
People are on the ball.
Yeah. Merge mining. Yeah, that's correct. So you can mine Syscoin at the same time when you mine Bitcoin. So it's called merge mining. And Jack and Bradley spent a lot of time explaining to us how you could mine two accounts at the same time. And also it's a green model, which means it is the only true green form of proof of work, because Syscoin effectively recycles energy already spent on Bitcoins miners who extend their work to Syscoin and receive block rewards for doing so. So yeah, that's correct. Is the answer is merge mined with Bitcoin. And here comes question 3. Okay, congrats to the 5 winners. Are you ready for the next question? We still have 2 questions left. Okay, so the third question is, how is Syscoin ensuring future scalability? Okay, the answer contains 2 elements. I think Jad just explained these 2 elements, what the differences are, and the roadmaps, and maybe they will launch at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see the correct answers. ZK-rollup is just part of the answer. Yeah. Okay. I can see people answering the questions correctly. Yeah, so the answers are rollups and Validium. So have you answered the quiz questions correctly? Okay, congrats to the 5 winners. And now let's
Nice.
move to the final question. Okay, this is a simple question because it is very general. It's not like specifically target at Syscoin like ecosystem or things like that. I think if you know blockchain or crypto, you might know the answer. So the last question is, what is the 3 things in the blockchain trilemma? So let me see. Trilemma. So 3 things. Okay. I can see people answering the questions correctly. No, not speed, feed, and scalability. Yeah, I think we have the winners already. So the answer is security, decentralization, and scalability. Okay. Congrats to the 20 winners. Rewards will be distributed to you within 14 days. Okay. Jad and Brad, do you have anything to add or to expand on?
No, that was great.
Yeah, I just want to say it's been amazing. Lots of really good questions, and we're headed into some really exciting times. Very interesting times for blockchain. As I said at the towards the beginning, the way that people look at blockchains is about to change pretty significantly, especially in regards to smart contract functionality and issues of security and scalability. So, keep your eye on, on modular chains like Syscoin for sure.
Thank you, Jen and Bradley. Okay, so I'm sure the community has learned a lot about Syscoin NEVM and ZK-rollups. Again, Syscoin is a coordinated dual-chain EVM platform specifically designed to provide ZK-rollups with a Bitcoin merged mined layer 1 for settlement that is time-tested and proven secure. Syscoin further enhances POW with multi-quorum finality that resists UV attacks and selfish mining, making DeFi safer. Syscoin's finality is achieved within 15 seconds of each block, much faster than the finality expected to Ethereum 2, which might take 10 to 15 minutes. Furthermore, being merge mined, Syscoin inherits much of the security of Bitcoin's own network and a relatively very high hash rate. Merged mining, invented by Satoshi Nakamoto himself in late 2010, is the true green form of proof of work. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for today's AMA, and thank you for attending. Thank you so much for your great questions and interactions. I think you could follow Syscoin's Twitter after the AMA, right? So where could we find you, like on Twitter or Telegram?
Yeah, so syscoin.org, of course, is our website. Twitter.com/Syscoin is where you'll find us on Twitter. You can also hop into our Discord. It's discord.gg/Syscoin. And our Telegram is, I think it's Syscoin_official.
Yeah. Okay. So the link to Syscoin Discord is down below, discord.gg/Syscoin. So feel free to join, and I'm sure you will learn a lot about their innovative program and recent development. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Hope we have more opportunity to collaborate in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for attending me. Thank
Bye.
you, guys. See you
See ya.
next time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.